Welcome to Snyder's Inc., where the fun never ends. Reactions, gaming, and more with Josh as your friend. Tune in, buckle up, it's a ride you don't wanna miss. Snyder's Inc., let's dive in, feel the ultimate bliss.
Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. We are back with some videos. I disappeared for a bit, didn't I? First was dealing with the copyright issues, making this channel available for memberships, which we do have now. We have memberships, so if you would like to become a member of this channel, you go below to my channel, you hit the join button. For like, I think less than $5 a month, you can become a soldier of Snyder's Inc. You can also become a leader of Snyder's Inc. or a founder of Snyder's Inc. with each tier. So if you'd like to join, that'd really help the channel out. But we're here right now. We got 5 fatal events from Tragedy Tales Part 2. I've done Part 1. And I've done Part 3. Somehow, I did not do Part 2. I swear I did, but I apparently did not. So, we'll get into that right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, hit subscribe button, comment, think down below. Let's go!
A ticket to an event, whether that be a music festival, an air show, or even a parade, it's a promise of joy, unity, and shared experiences. To escape the mundanity of everyday life, and to experience something spectacular, if only for a day or two. But with that promise, of course, comes risk. In life, you just never know when something's going to slip, when something's going to break. You just never know when something's going to go terribly wrong. Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Ryan from Tragedy Tales, and this week, we're diving straight back into 5 more events that ended up turning fatal. From the air show that twisted into a nightmare, to the infamous love parade that ultimately ended in heartbreak. This week, yet again, I've got entries from all across the world that will leave you...
Sorry, I had the turn my notifications off turn notifications off, put my phone on silent mode. So no one bothered us as we were filming our great content.
You in shock. So without any more dilly-dallying, let's get right into it. When you celebrate your birthday, usually you go out with your closest friends. If you're over the age of 18, you share a drink and you have a good time. Just for one day of the year, it's all about you. Now the chances...
No, on my birthday it isn't. Hell, I never really go on a birthday where I forget anything's about me.
...of dying on your birthday, of course, are very, very slim, but not impossible. This truly horrific entry begins on the chilly evening of January the 4th, 2019. That evening began with laughter and excitement, but it would quickly spiral completely out of control, turning into the stuff of nightmares. This entry begins on a seemingly ordinary birthday celebration in an escape room in Koszalin, Poland. That day, a group of 5 15-year-old high school students chose the escape room as a fun way to celebrate one of their birthdays. Their names were Julia, Amelia, Gosia, Carolina, and Victoria. They probably thought,
Victoria is such an interesting name. Victoria sounds so interesting of a name. Huh.
a bit of stress, paired with the joy and fun that comes with being with your friends, what's not to like? For a bit of background, this escape room was popular among local thrill seekers. It offered a unique blend of puzzles and challenges set within 4 distinctly themed rooms, designed to engage, challenge, and entice participants. Now, if you're not familiar with escape rooms, where have you been hiding? They're known for their immersive gameplay, typically involving groups of players working together to discover clues, solve puzzles, and accomplish tasks all within a set time limit. The aim of the game is to escape the room. Sounds fun, right? Over the last 10 years, this type of room has popularized globally. However, that day, as the 5 students arrived...
Oh, I had the most annoyingest experience with a escape room. I went there with a group of people, right? And there were these 2 people who were with us that were so fucking hammered. They had to have been drunk. They can't convince me otherwise. Because they were ruining the entire thing. They kept going in and out of the room. They kept just like f***ing around. They weren't really caring to the point they ended up just getting kicked out of the place. Lucky enough the group didn't, but just they did. But oh my god, it was awful.
At the escape venue, only one of the 4 themed rooms was in use. So, after paying their tickets, at approximately 5 p.m, they entered the escape room, eager to have some fun. As part of the immersive experience, the game's room's windows had been boarded shut for aesthetic purposes, which, while effective for the game's ambience, would later prove deadly. As the group attempted to solve the puzzle in the first room, in another part of the building, a 25-year-old staff member responsible for overseeing the games watched through CCTV. As he did so, within minutes of the game's beginning, he began to notice the undeniable scent of gas. Now, this smell instantly caused panic because the entire building was actually being heated by bottled gas. One spark, and it'd all be over.
Bottled gas? That doesn't sound safe at all. Why is the building being done by bottled gas?
In a rush and a bit of a panic, the employee attempted to locate and eliminate the source of the smell, leading him to a waiting room adjacent to the escape rooms. From here, the employee tried to switch off the gas supply, but as he did, the leaking gas suddenly ignited. The situation escalated quickly, and despite his best efforts to control it, within seconds, a wall of flames had appeared and raced up the wall, blocking off access to the games room and the 5 students who were locked inside. Because of the design of the escape room, with its locked doors and boarded windows, the room quickly turned into a fatal death trap.
Never actually lock someone in an escape room. If you go to an escape room and they actually must lock you in, say no. Because that's not how you're supposed to be in an escape. You have to be able to get out of an escape room. Like, do not let yourself get locked in, actually locked in the escape room.
This staff member was unable to unlock the door, and due to the intensity of the flames, he was overcome by smoke and forced to retreat out of the building. Despite the fire service arriving within literally 6 minutes, arriving at 5:21 p.m, rescue efforts were hampered by the room's fortified setup. By the time firefighters made their way into the room, they were met with a grim scene. All 5 teenagers had succumbed to asphyxiation, unable to escape the locked room as it filled with smoke. Horrifyingly, one was able to call her father before becoming overwhelmed, being able to just utter the word, "Help." They all died after inhaling deadly carbon monoxide gas produced by the incomplete combustion of the blaze. News of this tragedy spread like wildfire, and within the day, it had reached international headlines.
A terrifying story out of Poland this morning as 5 teenage girls were killed when a fire broke out at a so-called escape room at a game center Friday.
A birthday celebration turned into tragedy. 5 girls, all just 15 years old, found dead after a fire at this escape room in northern Poland. The likely cause, according to authorities, carbon monoxide poisoning. The prosecutor blaming a gas leak in the heating system for the blaze, which also left a male employee hospitalized with severe burns.
As the horrible news spread, the next day, locals attended the burnt-out venue to pay their respects, laying down flowers and toys in front. Many questioned why there was no fire escape, no fire procedure whatsoever, and why was there only one single member of staff to help the entire building?
Yeah, considering the fact there's 4 available rooms, 1 person working there seems like a terrible idea. Even the one I was at, only 1 person worked there.
The following week, several hundred community members attended a ceremony to mourn the deaths of the 5 lost too soon. In this photo, hundreds of residents can be seen walking to the cemetery to take part in the burial. In St. Casimir's Church, 2 white coffins and 3 heart-shaped urns, adorned with the girls' photos, were placed before the altar. Their RE teacher, who taught the students at their school, attended and said in their friendship they were and will remain together. They were together when their lives were ending, they are together here, and will rest together in the cemetery forever. Their coffins were laid to rest at a Koszalin cemetery to the sound of a song that one of them had written and recorded. As they were lowered into the earth, residents showered white roses upon the caskets, a symbol of innocence and youth.
This breaks my heart because the thought of they're young, right? They're like, what, 15 or something like that? They're not even in their 20s. And to then have, because of irresponsibility and negligence, to have your life taken by you being trapped in a room, burning to death. Like, that's an awful. Like, that's terrifying. That would scare the out of me.
Now, this entry seriously hit me while writing.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the Sewol. 5 15-year-olds lost to an avoidable and totally
15 years old.
horrific tragedy. What most of them were thinking about as the fire engulfed the room, I just can't. To make things worse, the formal investigation that followed highlighted severe safety oversights, indicating that this was a disaster waiting to happen. It was revealed that the building had no proper safety inspections, the venue had been improperly converted from a residential house to an escape room without alerting the local authorities. If authorities had been aware, they would have checked it out and said that this building was not adequate for commercial use, as it lacked emergency exits or in fact any emergency response, relying solely on the member of staff who was working that day to evacuate guests should there be any issues. Locals and their families alike were furious and heartbroken at the total avoidable loss of life, demanding that someone be held responsible for this. These oversights and safety eventually led to legal actions against those responsible for the venue's operation. 4 would eventually be indicted, facing charges of intentionally creating an unsafe situation and unintentionally causing 5 deaths, each individual facing up to 8 years in prison.
Whew.
This tragedy quickly spurred a nationwide inspection of all their escape rooms. After inspecting just over 1,100 in Poland, 53 of these were shut down as they didn't even meet basic safety standards, while several more were ordered to make changes. This catastrophic event also brought about stricter safety regulations in escape rooms globally, even in the UK, increasing awareness of the importance of safety standards in entertainment venues. Now, 5 years on from this horrible incident, escape rooms continue to thrive. However, nowadays, it's actually very rare for any escape room to lock you up with no escape. Fire exits or emergency doors now feature in almost all escape rooms, almost guaranteeing that this awful, avoidable horror does not occur again. The height of summer is always the best time for an airshow. Bright blue skies mean great visibility, a major plus for both spectators and of course the pilots flying the planes. Plus, good weather means folks are more likely to leave their homes to see something awesome. In this case, the awesome thing that drew thousands out of their homes was to involve military fighter jets flying at high speeds in intricate formations. It certainly sounds impressive, and since the pilots were professionals, it would be safe, right? I bet the majority of the crowd at the Skinliv airfield on the 27th of July 2002 likely felt the same, but I'm sure they don't anymore. That fateful day, as over 10,000 people gathered at an airfield near the city of Lviv in Ukraine, it was a special occasion. This year marked the 60th anniversary of the Ukrainian Air Force 14th Air Corps. Crowds were eager to get to the airfield to see a show performed with real military machines. With the clear skies above, the first plane to grace the skies that day was an AN-2, circling the military airfield, dropping paratroopers to the ground. Then 2 Yak-52s took flight, performing some truly jaw-dropping aerobatic stunts. However, the next aircraft to dazzle the crowd that day was an Su-27, a twin-engined supersonic fighter plane. This was the most anticipated machine of the show. This crazy fighter plane was to be piloted by two experienced flyers, Volodymyr Toponar and his co-pilot Yuri Yegorov. With thousands cheering below, the pair took off shortly after midday, and for several minutes they wowed the crowd with their Soviet-built machine, showing off the Su-27's nifty capabilities. At 12:52 p.m. though, all hell broke loose. As the fighter jet entered a move known as the oblique loop with a turn, the plane swooped down low to the ground, and after one roll, suddenly the pilots realized that they were way too low to the ground to perform the trick. You can see on the video that they tried desperately to pull up to a safe altitude, but by now it was too late. The fighter jet continued to drop rapidly when suddenly the left side of the aircraft dipped even further, clipping a tree before striking the tarmac with incredible force.
Woo!
As crowds watched in complete...
That's either just a genuine mistake on their part, or I don't know, because that's a big fuck up. Right? That's a massive fuck up. You are screwing up, and you've now probably just caused death to a bunch of people.
shock, the plane then slid along the runway and cartwheeled its way across the asphalt, dragging 4 rows of barbed wire along with it before crashing into a stationary transport aircraft. The devastating impact caused the Su-27 to explode in a huge fireball and spin wildly out of control, with fire and debris headed straight for the fleeing crowd. Those closest to the crash had little chance of escape. Most of the first-hand accounts of this incident are truly horrifying. Many suffered debilitating mental illnesses from what they had to witness that day. There was one account of a man who was there that day. He watched as the jet killed his wife and son, leaving him stood there in the airfield, in his own words, covered in human meat. Horrifyingly.
That is the most terrifying visual I never want to experience. Oh my god, he sees a plane come down, take out his wife and his son. He's covered in... Oh my god!
A total of 77 people lost their lives, including 28 children. The impact injured a further 543 people, with over 100 of these people needing hospital treatment for burns, head injuries, and bone fractures. Some people were hit by the plane and were walking around with clearly fatal injuries before they collapsed into the grass. Incredibly, despite the devastation, the pilots, Volodymyr and Yuri, managed to escape, suffering only minor injuries, having ejected from the plane moments before it impacted with the ground. However, their ordeal from this nightmare was far from over. In its search for answers, the Ukrainian government pointed the finger directly at the military Air Force. The Air Force General Viktor Strelnikov was fired from his position. Meanwhile, Volodymyr and Yuri, plus 3 other military officials, were made to stand trial. They were accused...
somewhat get the pilots. I mean, you would have to think it's some mistake they made that caused this, but I don't know why you're blaming the Air Force specifically. It's not like they specifically planned to do this.
...of negligence, violating flight rules, and failing to follow orders. In the ensuing investigation, the majority of the blame fell onto the pilots. They were accused of trying maneuvers that they weren't skilled at an altitude that was not appropriate. The inquiry chief asserted that the main cause of the plane crash was a failure to respect the flight plan and aerial maneuvers that were not in the program. In Volodymyr's defense, he claimed that he did ask for extra training at the airfield where the show was taking place, but his request was turned down. Despite maintaining their innocence, the pilot and co-pilot were sentenced to 14 and 8 years in prison respectively.
Whew! 14 years and 8 years for this. I mean, they're both out. Yeah, 2005. They're both out by now.
They were also ordered to pay the equivalent of 1.42 and $500,000 compensation to the families and those affected by the disaster. The co-pilot, Yuri, eventually had his sentence reduced to 3.5 years, being released in 2008.
Wow.
5 years later, in 2013, the main pilot, Volodymyr, was also released from prison. After his release, he was interviewed, where here he continued to reinstate his innocence, expressing that he was not to blame and that he and his co-pilot had simply been made scapegoats. He said, and I quote, "What happened was the fault of the organisers." He stated that planes must not fly over spectators.
It's not just their fault. No, because you're the ones flying the fucking plane, my friend. It might be that you didn't have intention with it. You didn't do it on purpose. You didn't do whatever. But you were flying the plane that crashed. Something went awry. The plane did not malfunction. You were too close to the ground. Something went awry by your standards. You flying it caused something to go awry. Take responsibility in some form.
Which has actually now been made illegal. You can't do this anymore. During the show, he said that he had to make several advanced maneuvers in just a few minutes. He said during the half barrel, he noticed the decreased thrust of both engines, and then the airspeed fell. He revealed that he'd struggled to lift the plane until the very last moment, and at which point he believed that he was going to die. His co-pilot, Yuri, triggered the ejection, but the cause of the crash remains unknown. However, whatever the cause and whoever is to blame, this won't bring back the people that were lost. Sadly, up to this very day, there's still little comfort to be found for the victims of the deadliest airshow accident in history. Attending a music festival is a chance to let your hair down, soak up the good vibes, and watch your favourite artist perform on stage. Unfortunately, for the thousands of guests in attendance at the Atmosphere Dance Festival in Brazil, their day of celebration and joy would soon turn into one of shock and horror. On a seemingly ordinary Sunday afternoon of December the 17th, 2017, as many as 5,000 eager ravers gathered for the Atmosphere Dance Festival in Brazil, located at the Parque de Esportes Assis in the southern municipality of Esteo. But for a bit of background, the Atmosphere Dance Festival was a pretty famous 2-day annual rave party organised by the Brazilian organisers Atmosphere. Each year since 2012, they'd host a massive rave attracting thousands of people from far and wide. They'd blast out EDM music, shoot flames and pyrotechnics. The whole thing looks crazy fun. While the festival had remained in one place for a number of years, in November of 2017, the organisers revealed on their Facebook the new location of the festival. On the run-up to December the 17th, excitement was palpable. Atmosphere posted several times on their Facebook, advertising for the festival and showing the stage being constructed. However, the weather really wasn't looking good. In the days leading up to the 17th, it had been raining and it was very windy. Organisers just hoped that this would clear before the festival went ahead. However, on the morning of the 17th, the day that everyone was waiting for, much to everyone's disappointment, the weather had not improved. It was still overcast and windy. Checking the forecast, there were severe weather warnings issued throughout the entire day, even including the possibility of thunderstorms. But the bad weather wasn't going to stop them having a good time. The organisers were determined for the event to go ahead. After all, they'd retrieved all the necessary permits, and the 2 main stages that they'd built were designed to withstand gale force winds of up to 80 kilometers an hour, or around 50 miles an hour. It's a bit of wind. What could possibly go wrong? So, that day, as the...
I still think anytime bad weather's coming out in the festival or something like that, if it's outside, I'm not going to it. One, I don't want to stand out in the rain, even if I'm listening to music. I don't want to deal with that. Weather is unpredictable. You can't trust it.
Wind howled away. More than 5,000 intrepid partygoers gathered for Atmosphere. They crowded by the speakers and awaited the appearance of the DJ. Performing on the stage that day was a popular DJ by the name of Caleb. His full name was Caleb Freitas de Rosa, and he was well known in the industry for being an amazing DJ. As the Atmosphere Festival got going, Caleb's music blared through the speakers, the The crowd of partygoers reveled in the booming sounds of EDM, and if anything, the strong winds only added to the fun, at least for a little while. Footage captured by revelers who pulled out their phones captured scenes of decorations flapping in the wind and the cheers of ecstasy as people struggled to hold on to their hats. As usual, it's all fun and games until suddenly it's not. Amidst the cheers and the thumping soundtrack, an almighty gust of wind ripped through the stage, tearing the large metal structure off the ground. The metal structure that loomed over the main stage and the DJ collapsed in an instant, bringing the party to a crashing halt. Some of the guests seemed oblivious to the tragedy at first, continuing to record, hoot and holler, and then the realization hit. This was serious. 3 people had been struck by the heavy collapsing framework. They were lucky to escape with minor injuries. Sadly for DJ Caleb, the star of the show, the situation was far more serious. The metal frame had impacted with his head, causing grievous injuries. In all the chaos, Caleb was rushed to hospital with his uncle. Tragically, this devastating blow proved fatal. Caleb passed away on the way to the hospital. Later that same evening, Atmosphere posted a statement to their Facebook, accompanied by a photo with a black ribbon and the word luto, meaning mourning in Portuguese. On this post, organisers apologised for the tragic incident, stating that we always value the safety of our public, following all processes, praises and authorizations requested by local authorities. They ended this statement saying that they were heartbroken, that they'd lost a friend and an artist, adding that their top priority was to assist those injured and their families. A subsequent investigation found that promoters had ignored the weather warnings, citing the importance of their precious permits once again. And although the stage had been built to withstand 40-mile-an-hour winds, the gust of wind that caused its downfall was only registered at 35 miles an hour. So someone's lying somewhere.
It just failed at it didn't. It can't take 40 miles an hour wind. You don't even know for sure that it can take that much, because you probably didn't test it or anything. It's like...
Whether the collapse was due to shoddy workmanship, negligence, or some other factors, it's impossible to tell. Sadly, however, I can't see that anyone was prosecuted for this fatal failure. The death of DJ Caleb sent reverberations through the EDM community and the festival community as a whole. Atmosphere returned the following year, and this time the weather was way better. It was gorgeous, in fact. The festival going down a treat. After the following year's event ended, the organisers posted that strong emotions were felt this past weekend. They said that they were aware that regaining trust is not easy, and even less easy to be forced to live with the pain and losses and learn from difficult lessons. They said they knew that the past cannot be changed, but together they hope to rewrite their ending. While it's correct they can rewrite their ending, they can't rewrite Caleb's. For him, he was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it cost him his life. No matter where an event's being held, be it indoors, in a confined space, or outdoors with plenty of room, there's always hazards to be aware of, and there's always a potential for unexpected tragedy. While both organisers and attendees are responsible for limiting the chance of catastrophe, to err is human, and sadly, as in this next case, a lack of foresight can sometimes prove fatal. On Friday, the 17th of October 2014, a crowd of 700 people attended an outdoor concert at Pangyo Techno Valley in the city of Seongnam in South Korea. Pangyo Techno Valley, known as PTV, is often referred to as the Silicon Valley of Korea. It's a sprawling site filled with research facilities that often serves as a hub for technology startup companies. Many in the crowd that day had been working at these facilities as most were in their 30s and 40s and could be seen wearing suits and business attire. What better way to blow off some steam after a hard day's work than to attend a concert held in the open, fresh air? Taking to the stage that day was the all-female pop group 4 Minute, known for...
Is this the one, or is this a different one where like people stand in like a vent and the vent thingy just like caved in?
Their edgy dance pop style. They were a big draw, and as soon as they started their setlist, the audience jostled for position, eager to enjoy the show. All was going to plan. The crowd was enjoying it, the music was blasting, but for some people in the crowd who wanted to get a better view, the evening was about to take a turn for the worst. Crowds began noticing an elevated platform that stood at shoulder height to the rest of the crowd. More than 24 people clambered onto the structure, which measured 3 to 4 meters, or around 10 to 12 feet wide. Its outer edges were made from concrete, but what the crowd would have not realized was that this was in fact a ventilation grate. It was not designed for people to stand on, and it was never considered that people were going to stand on this to watch the show. Others in the crowd attempted to warn the climbers, telling them to get down and that it was dangerous. However, perhaps due to the loud music, or the fact that the grate was continuing to hold, these warnings fell on deaf ears. After all, they were getting a better view at the concert. It was brilliant. But, all of a sudden, it all goes wrong. Eventually, under all the weight of the concert goers, the ventilation grate gave way and all the people plummeted 10 to 20 meters, or around 30 to
I thought so. I thought it was this one. Yeah.
60 feet into an underground car park below. As these people tumbled to their deaths, 4 Minute continued to dance and the crowd watched on for a while, unaware of what dreadful tragedy had just unfolded. As one witness later recalled, there was a sudden, loud screaming, and when I turned, it looked as if people were being sucked into a hole. Those closest to the grate began to gather around and took a look into the new void that had appeared, and only then the extent of the disaster became known. Firefighters and ambulances quickly arrived at the scene, but they were met with an awful sight. 12 people had been killed by the fall, 2 more died from their injuries on the way to the hospital, and a further 2 people passed away while receiving medical treatment. In total, 16 souls were lost, and another 11 people were seriously injured. They only had those who were dead to thank for the fact that they were alive, as they most likely broke their fall. In the days following the incident, South Korea's then Prime Minister, Chung Hong-won, visited the site with rescue workers to pay respects and start the investigation. As a country, South Korea has endured many tragedies where planning and safety standards have been called into question. This deadly collapse came just 6 months after the sinking of the Sewol, a terribly negligent incident which I've already covered on this channel, which caused the deaths of over 300 people, most of which were students. After this incident, the public outrage was at an all-time high, many demanding that officials review the safety standards that have often been criticised for being too lax.
That one's a tough one. The reason to me that's a tough one is because while yes it is a thing, you were standing on a ventilation system you weren't supposed to stand on, and it collapsed under you. Now, the one thing I would say is you probably should not be able to easily access a ventilation system that's on top of a parking garage. You probably shouldn't be easily able to stand on that and get access to that, so maybe that's probably where the problem is and where the safety thing needs to be fixed.
All festivals and parades begin with noble aims: to bring people together, and of course, to turn a cheeky profit. While organisers can spend all day long trying to figure out safety and security, ensuring that things never go out of control, of course, life always finds a way. This terrible tragedy unfolded in Duisburg, a city located in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, Germany, on the 24th of July, 2010. That fateful day was the day that literally millions of Germans were waiting for, the infamous Love Parade. If you're not familiar with this tragedy, I guess you're wondering what a Love Parade is. Well, the Love Parade was a massive annual festival hosted in Germany, starting in 1989 in Berlin as a peace demonstration celebrating the fall of the Berlin Wall. The Love Parade quickly evolved into one of the world's largest techno music festivals, each year attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors from across the globe. While the Love Parade featured main stages with bands playing, the main big attraction for most was the Love Parade floats. Instead of being decorated like typical floats in parades that you'd usually see, these special Love Parade floats would instead be outfitted like heavy-duty trucks, featuring large speakers and subwoofers with DJs in each one. Each truck was like a little mobile disco. These DJs would blast out techno music and other types of house electronic dance music. These floats would then slowly move along a designated route along the city streets. These routes would often span several kilometers long. Attendees would dance and follow alongside these floats, partying to the music being played. Partygoers would paint their body with bright colors and would flock, often in their hundreds of thousands, and in later events in their millions, to the streets to catch these floats, dance, and spread messages of love and unity. There was also a main stage event hosted later on in the day where several artists were due to play on the big stage. It does sound quite cool. It's quite a unique experience. Over the years, the Love Parade grew dramatically in size and popularity. But just because the Love Parade's intentions were good, that doesn't mean that it's immune to tragedy. One of the earliest warning signs for the 2010 event was the change in location. When officials in Berlin said no to hosting the event where it was usually held, likely because of all the waste the event had generated in the past, the Love Parade picked up and headed to the city of Duisburg in West Germany. Even before the day, many concerns had been raised as to whether the city of Duisburg could host such a large event. The city itself was home to 500,000 residents, and the chosen venue location, which was actually an old freight station, only had the capacity of 250,000. The festival grounds were located in the northern section of the former freight station. Inside this festival grounds sat a main stage for the day's climax, characterized by circling DJ trucks. Previous Love Parades suggested a turnout of close to 1 million people, whereas Berlin was suited to this influx of people with its wide avenues and parks preventing overcrowding. The confined area of Duisburg just did not. Despite these worries, the parade went ahead as expected. On the morning of the 24th of July, visitors began arriving en masse at Duisburg for the Love Parade via the train station. To access this festival area, attendees had to navigate through either two entrance points, one to the east and one to the west. The one to the east led underground through a tunnel, while the one to the west was nestled between several underpasses. Both entrances converged at the primary entrance, a tunnel that served as the entrance and exit leading into the festival grounds. While there was an adjacent smaller exit ramp, it wasn't used that much, and the main tunnel was the one that was used the most. For some reason, temporary fences were put up on this main exit and entrance tunnel, narrowing the tunnel to just 28 meters, despite planning documents stating that this should be at least 45 meters wide. The event experienced delays, starting an hour later than planned, at noon rather than 11. This meant by the time the entrance gates even opened, colossal crowds had already gathered. Nevertheless, despite the overflowing crowds of people, the parade eventually kicked off in the event area shortly after 2 p.m, with over 500,000 people in attendance, just over double the advised maximum capacity. The event proceeded without issues for the first 3.5 hours. However, the crowd reached extreme numbers that they didn't think was even possible. At 10 to 4, the police established a blockade at the west entrance, barring any new arrivals or departures. Shortly thereafter, a second blockade was set up at the alternative east entrance. At approximately 12 minutes past 4, the police set up a third barricade at the narrowest part of the main entrance and exit tunnel. effectively severing the primary route for festival goers entering and exiting. At this point, all routes in and out were blocked. Within minutes, large crowds began gathering on each side, unable to leave or enter. With the crowd growing denser and denser, the situation quickly escalated. At 13 minutes past 4,
I get why you want to keep people out. My confusion is why you want to keep people in. Why do you want to keep people in the festival? Why do you not want to have people leave it? Like, the police barricades, like, almost keeping everyone out, like, in. Who's like, you're not allowed to leave. You have to stay and enjoy the festival. It's almost like you're, like, prison in there.
just 1 minute after the main tunnel was sealed, the eastern cordon unexpectedly gave way, unleashing an avalanche of people that rushed towards the main entrance. By 20 past 4, the blockade at the western entrance was lifted, removing the last barrier to the main tunnel. However, as attendees rushed to the party, they were also confronted by the third still active cordon. This made the bottleneck even worse. Over the following 20 minutes, chaos ensued. Visitors streamed in from both entrances completely unchecked, converging on the already packed main tunnel entrance. Desperation mounted quickly, driving people to find any possible escape. Many headed for the stairwells flanking the entrance, while others climbed to nearby billboards and light towers in a frantic attempt to escape the crush. As the situation worsened, some people were dragged off the stairs by others, some were trampled, while the majority were forced against the concrete walls and other people. As one officer described the scene, it wasn't long before it became a living hell in there. Breathing soon became a luxury, and things got seriously dangerous. At each entrance, loudspeakers now warned visitors that the festival was closed and that they should turn back, but this didn't stop most. They ignored the warnings and joined in on the nightmare. By now, the total number of people at the event was reported to have reached 1.4 million. This footage, captured at 20 to 5, shows a seriously horrible scene. A woman who was trapped in the crowd later described seeing twisted up bodies of those who had been crushed. They were lying at the tunnel exit. Their faces had all turned blue. People likened it to squeezing through the eye of a needle. Everyone completely panicked, leading to a stampede, though later analysis dismissed this notion, instead referring to it as crowd turbulence. Incredibly, many of the festival goers who managed to reach the parade area continued dancing even up to the early evening, completely unaware of what happened in the entrance tunnel just meters away. Apparently, officials made the decision not to inform the crowd about the incident, believing that it was now safer for the event to proceed without causing further panic. Horrifically, in all the carnage of that day, 21 people lost their lives. 21 people were crushed to death, crushed mostly between the staircase and the billboard on the ramp area. Autopsies revealed that every single one of the fatalities were due to completely crushed rib cages. A further 600 people sustained some form of injury, having to go to the hospital and dealing with mental issues from this event. In the aftermath, 4 employees of the event company Lope Event and 6 city officials stood trial on charges of negligent manslaughter and bodily harm, which of course they denied. Prosecutors contended that serious errors in planning and authorizing the event, along with inadequate safety measures, had contributed to the tragedy. Meanwhile, the defense argued that multiple factors had played a role. During the trial, it was revealed that police radios that day had malfunctioned, causing a lack of communication between the police, fire crews, and event organizers when the crush occurred. 9 years later, in February of 2019, the charges against the 7 accused were dropped due to the complexity of assessing individual guilt among multiple defendants. 1 year later, the case reached its 10-year statute of limitations, meaning that ultimately, nobody will ever face justice for this horrible disaster. This incident marked the end to the Love Parade, as after this, the organisers chose to cancel the event forever. However, in 2023, after a 12-year hiatus, the Love Parade reopened in Berlin under the name Rave the Planet, with the safety of their participants now being their top priority. That year, over 200,000 people attended, filling the streets of Berlin once more with happiness and joy, rather than death and tragedy as they did before.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. This reaction video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the join button to become a member. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all for the next one.